Hello and welcome back to the Podium Podcast, and today, of course, it is the 2024 Singapore Grand Prix preview, where we're going to be talking about the biggest talking points and our predictions for the next Singapore Grand Prix, which is happening in a couple of days' time. But before we talk about this year's Grand Prix, we're of course going to do our typical little recap about what happened last year at the 2023 Singapore Grand Prix, where Carlos Sainz took his second victory in Formula 1. And it was a great race, to be fair. We saw Red Bull really struggle with their setup. Obviously, they had to race, as mentioned, quite a lot because they found it really difficult to go over the curbs. And I think this ultimately led for a four-way battle for the win. The Ferraris and Lando Norris and the Mercedes all vying to take first spot at a Grand Prix in which Red Bull weren't dominant. And considering this was the only non-Red Bull win, it showed how dominant Red Bull were last season. But it was great, and we saw a tactical masterclass from Carlos Sainz, allowing Lando Norris to get into DRS territory and almost pull Lando Norris in P2 along with him, so that he was not left to be a sitting duck to the Mercedes, who were on fresher tyres after, I think, a virtual safety car. But Carlos Sainz took the win with Lando Norris in second place and Lewis Hamilton in third place after Russell crashed on the final lap. Final lap. This year, I think it could be the same, which I think is a really positive, talking point going into the weekend. But I guess we'll see. Well, let's move on to the biggest talking points about this weekend. And I think the main talking point that's come out of the Singapore paddock is, of course, the future of Daniel Ricciardo. Really came out of the blue, to be fair. I mean, I think people were expecting more of a driver announcement at the end of the season to say Ricciardo will be leaving, Racing Bulls for Liam Lawson. But personally, I did not expect Red Bull to be making such a just quick and effective decision straight away. I mean, if you look at the next Grand Prix, you've got obviously Austin and Las Vegas, where I thought that, Ricciardo is almost like an honorary citizen of the States. So I was a bit surprised about that. I wouldn't have done a driver switch now. I would have probably done it maybe in the summer break, but of course we do have almost like an autumn break from now until Austin. We've got like 4 months off, which is not really good. But I guess we'll see if Ricciardo makes a statement saying that he won't be driving for RB, and of course that means this Grand Prix he's gonna have to perform. If he doesn't do a drastic change, maybe it might be too late already, but if he doesn't do a drastic change in form, I guess Liam Lawson's gonna take his seat, and I think Ricciardo's had every chance to go and prove his worth again. We know he's a great driver. He's won 8 Grand Prix. He's at Red Bull, he was challenging Max. But, I mean, after he went to Renault, it just seemed to go downhill. And I think the move to McLaren wasn't the best. And now he almost had saving grace and Christian Horner giving him a spot in the Red Bull family again. But look, he's taken that chance and he's kind of blown it compared to what his teammates doing. And look, maybe if Sergio Perez wasn't in that car, he would have been in that car. But I mean, it's just it's unfortunate. He's a great character to have around the paddock, and I think that his performances might not be up to scratch, but his charisma, and also he's one of the faces of Formula 1 now. And so to take that away straight away with no season in between is a pretty big statement, and I think it shows that Lauren Meckies, the team principal of RB, maybe doesn't want RB to be seen as almost a sister team to Red Bull, or more its own team where they can make their own decisions and have their own future and have their own success, compared to always being linked with Red Bull. But that's difficult where you share the same factory. So, but yeah, I think the second biggest talking point out of this Grand Prix is also the return of Kevin Magnussen. People are very, I suppose, I think he's either going to have a really good race or a really bad race. I can't really see him doing like a mediocre race. I think that he's come back. He's had a Grand Prix off. He's had about 3 weeks off now from racing since we were in Monza. And I think he's got no penalty points. He's got, something to prove now because he's got no seat for next season. And I think, look, it's a street circuit. Things can happen on a street circuit. It might take a late safety car off, or I know someone, and then he's back into it. But I think either he's gonna have a really, really good race or like a really, really bad race. But I guess we'll see. I think around street circuit, Hulkenberg's quite quick. If it needs to be, then he needs to, almost do like a Miami type performance this year. Holding up people, driving not recklessly, but driving very, very defensively all over the place. We might see almost a decent performance by him, or he might end up in the wall lap 4, and that's it. We'll be saying he does not deserve a seat. His future's done. But I guess we'll see. I think the biggest talking point, and I think a talking point that no one can get off their mouths almost, is how Red Bull will perform. And this is really interesting because you look at Red Bull, and the betting man would be Red Bull aren't even in the greatest form right now, and now they come to the worst circuit a really, really bad circuit in Singapore. And you're thinking, can it get any worse? And I think the answer is yes. I think, honestly, if they manage to get out of Q2 and into Q3, that's a big victory for them. Because if you look at last year, look how competitive they were. They were up there. They were flying. They were winning every single race of the season. In a 23 race calendar? Exceptional. But now, next season later, it's a completely different story. And if you look at, I've been seeing things online saying if Red Bull drop at the same rate that they did in like last season compared to the others, dropping a second here and there, they might even make out Q1. This is pretty much going to be their worst race in a long while. Their worst race probably since 2014, 2015 probably. And I think this will be huge in the Drivers' Championship. Constructors is gone already. I can't see them winning that. But Drivers' Championship is the only thing that they're going to be fighting for now. They will sacrifice everything, Checo, everything, to make sure that they try and win the Constructors. But it's easier said than done, trying to win the Drivers' Championship with a bad car like that. Which will be really interesting to see. If Lando even gets on the podium and Max is down in P8, P9, that's a huge amount of points that Lando Norris will get compared to Verstappen. And yes, it might be 10, it might be a 15-point deficit. That's, at the extreme. But still, if Lando manages to get that points deficit down from 50 to 40, it looks more reasonable going into the next 6 races of the season. Yes, it's a difficult feat, and Singapore's an enduring race for every driver out there. But McLaren have the car, and they should be at least, we'll get into our predictions about who's going to win later on in this episode, but he definitely needs to, really needs to make sure he has just a solid weekend. Even if he gets a P4, even a P5, and then Max is down in P10, or even not in the points, we don't know how bad they will fall. That's the biggest talking point. How far will they fall around the streets of Singapore? We saw it last year. We will see it this year. But by how much? And if you look at the next couple of races, the next part of the calendar, you've got street circuit wise, you've got Las Vegas still, which will be a huge problem for them. And even Austin, they seemed quite poor because the bumps that they just can't deal with. Mexico and Brazil, they should be fine. Qatar, they should be fine. saying that the McLaren were really quick around Qatar last year, but we'll get into that, a couple of months down the line. Maybe Lando Norris just bottled the championship, and we're thinking, regardless if he wins, he's not going to win it. But right now, the championship is still on. I think this weekend is probably the biggest weekend he has to try and, bring the championship deficit down. This is his chance to shine. He's great around Singapore. He got podium last year, P2, close to winning, obviously. But now he has to come with a different mindset. He's got a championship to try and win. He may not have to win the race, but at least be on the podium. If he's on the podium, it's a good job, because I think the Ferraris will be really rapid around here. What should we do next? Yep, I think that's all the talking points done. I think now let's get into the nitty gritty of it, of what it would actually be. I think it'll be a one-stop, to be fair. I think they brought the C3, C4, C5, the softest in their range, and I think it'll be one-stop, simple, unless there is a safety car or there is rain, which is quite... the rain's lurking around in the nighttime. I mean, we might as well go to Weather Watch right now, but we'll check the weather for Singapore, and it should be not here. There you go, weather. So on Friday, today, it's supposed to be raining actually, which is quite interesting. Obviously it goes without saying, all this weekend is 33 degrees. The humidity is crazy around there. But on Friday there's a 40% chance of rain. Saturday there's a 44% chance of rain and a thunderstorm. And on Sunday it's cloudy but 42% chance of rain. So there's rain there-ish, but I don't think it might not rain, but you never know. It's very humid around Singapore. It's a very tiresome race. It's a long race, but then also you've got that is a street circuit, and you've got that is really, really hot, and it's dark. Well, it's a nighttime race, so this is probably the most hardest race for any driver out there. It's just horrible. I mean, even on the F1 game, it's horrible, and I'm just in my bedroom. So, obviously, let's go to Circuit Check, our next segment of this type of podcast episode thingy, and it's got Ferrari written all over it. They won in 2019. They were close in 2018, 2017. They locked out the front row. 2020 there was no race. 2022 they were second with Leclerc, and I think Sainz was P3 as well. Then last season they won. This has got a Ferrari victory written all over it, but you still can't rule out a McLaren, greatness sorry, that doesn't make sense. Like a really good McLaren drive. They're quick around every circuit, but Ferrari just seem quite quick around street circuits. We saw last time in Baku, also about Baku driver ratings or rankings, whatever you want to call them. That will be a separate episode that I'll do, like a combined Azerbaijan and Singapore Grand Prix ratings next week or the week after. So I didn't forget about that. I will be doing that. But moving on to this weekend, of course, it's got Ferrari written all over it. They just seem good about street circuits. In Baku, they were quickest. I'd probably say they got pole. But I think what separates Baku from here is that in Baku you can overtake. Singapore you cannot overtake. If Leclerc manages to get pole, and he can, there's a huge chance that he can hold off. If Ferrari get a right strategy and do everything by the book, they've got a huge chance of winning quite a lot. The only thing that could probably throw a race in jeopardy is a bit of rain or a safety car or even a VSC. And I think we've had a safety car in pretty much every single race in the last 10 years around Singapore. Is that type of circuit. You will get people into the barriers. But that's just street racing, isn't it? So I'll probably say Ferrari looked the quickest. McLaren also looked quick. And I think Red Bull will drop rapidly. And even Mercedes might be in the mix as well. Last season they were. And I don't see a reason why they can't be. Moving on to upgrade update, and pretty much everyone has bought a new front wing. Most notably, RB, Aston Martin, Alpine, and Ferrari have bought a new front wing to help with downforce. This is very downforce heavy track. You need a lot of downforce in the corners. This is a street circuit and not many big long straights. I'll probably say Red Bull have brought a front brake duct, a new one, front brake duct, which will help with cooling around a really humid place. So it does show already that they know that they've got flaws around their car, and I think it'll be very much a damage limitation type of race. McLaren have brought a new front wing and also a rear wing. I mean, rear wing's been the talk of everyone pretty much this week in between these races, but I think is it a flexi wing? I guess we'll see. But I think the FIA have dismissed any appeal from Ferrari and Red Bull and stuff like that. But they've bought a new rear wing to help with downforce, which might mean that they might be really quick. I don't think anyone is sacrificing straight line speed over downforce. I think it's the other way around here. So yeah, of course everyone's going to be very downforce heavy compared to last time out in Baku. Of course, let's go on to our predictions for qualifying race, and of course we do it here the middle of the race. So let's go qualifying. I think it will be Hamilton in P5. I think he's not been the best about qualifying in the last couple of races. His form in qualifying has been worse compared to his race craft, I suppose. But I think it'll be a P5 round here. I will say P4 will be Piastri. P3 getting into the podiums now for qualifying. George Russell, he's been great at qualifying. He's called Mr. Saturday for a reason. I think Mercedes will be decently quick around here. So I think it's a P3. P2, I'm going to go for Lando Norris. And of course, I'm going to go for qualifying Charles Leclerc to take his pole. Because I think he's rapid around here. He's a great person in qualifying to have. A very quick driver. And I think here, he will definitely take pole. Not by a lot, but he'll definitely take pole for sure. Looking at the race, it's very difficult to overtake. So, I mean, I haven't done... Actually, no, well, we'll get into it. But I think it'll be a Lewis Hamilton in P5. Now, I'm gonna put Lando Norris in P4. The reason why, I just don't think... I think he'll struggle a lot around here. I think there's a lot playing on his mind. And I think he'll qualify well. But I think it might be a poor strategy call by McLaren, maybe. I just don't see something going right. But it'll still be a P4. And I think Max will be down in P9 or P10. Clip that, because I think that's going to happen. And I think he'll definitely struggle around here. And also, overtaking is difficult, so if you get your pit stop wrong, you're screwed, pretty much. P3, I've gone for George Russell. I think he'll get a podium somehow. Keep his P3 in qualifying. I think he will definitely have a decent race. He got a podium last time out. Yes, 2 people did crash in front of him, but Mercedes weren't quick around there. I think Mercedes will be quick around here. Not as quick as Ferrari and McLaren, but still quite quick. Now, P2, I'm going to go for Oscar Piastri. I think he'll carry on his form, a continuous form of being, since, last 8 races, the person that's scored the most points. And I think he'll continue that. I think he'll have a great race from P4 to go to P2. But he won't be able to beat Charles Leclerc, who's going to take the victory. His first victory in Singapore, his third of the season. And I think he'll take the race, win. I think it's difficult to overtake. I think Ferrari will definitely pull a blinder. I don't think Sainz will be in the mix as much as people expect, and I think that he'll definitely be almost sacrificial lamb to Leclerc, and I think Leclerc will take the victory around the streets of Singapore. Middle of the race, I'm going to go for Leclerc, Russell, Perez, Verstappen, and Norris. Top 5. I don't know what lap that is actually, but I'll make notes of it. I think Red Bull will try and go for a longer strategy, try and hope for like a late safety car or something like that to pit. So that's why I think they're going to be 3rd and 4th. And obviously, biggest winner and biggest loser. Of course, I'm going to go for Ferrari to be biggest winner. I think that they'll have a really good weekend, and I think that they'll definitely do well. Biggest loser, Red Bull. This is an easy one, isn't it? It's not one I don't have to think long and hard about. But compared to their previous form, I think that they're definitely going to struggle here, and I think it'll be a matter of how much not will it happen. I think this is a very much damage limitation race, as I said before, and I think that it'll be interesting to see the championship afterwards in the drivers and constructors, because Ferrari have got a very good chance this weekend to overtake Red Bull. I think there's only a 30-point difference. But yeah, I think that will be a great place to wrap up our 2024 Singapore Grand Prix predictions. Previews, I should say. Make sure to like and subscribe, and hopefully it'll be a good race this season. Goodbye.